list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. It sucks.
Welcome back to This List Sucks, everyone. It is not Friday, it's Thursday night. I'm JB.
I'm sorry. I'm Mike, and I'm the one that fucked up this. Like, I can't do Friday night this week, and so...
Dude, nothing's fucked up. We're early.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So in theory, people should be excited about that. And it's not just us this week.
We have another special guest. So I was thinking about this earlier. This is our second guest appearance. So this is the first time we've had the same guest twice. I don't know if I worded that properly at all, but
try it a third time. I think if you workshop it just one more time, you're gonna nail it.
Okay, I'll work on it.
We're not live,
right? Yeah. No, this is straight up live right now. Yeah. But yeah, we have Justin Handel coming back for his second appearance on This List Sucks, and we do appreciate you being here, Justin. Thanks for joining us again.
Mm-hmm.
Super thrilled to be here. Great list.
And we're just representing
terrible list.
Terrible list because this week is just nothing but evidence about how fucked up and shitty this list is, right?
That's right.
I mean, that's basically what this show is. Because actually I don't think we talked about this on the last show. We really kind of screwed the pooch on this one. But this week, rather than going through the list, because JB and I wanted to be together when we ended the list of 400, and of course I'm remote. We're representing so many parts of the United States. JB is absolutely holding down the Midwest. I'm holding down the South down in Texas, and Justin is holding down the NYC, representing the borough of Queens, I believe. Yeah,
Brooklyn, the neighborhood of Clinton Hill specifically, because boroughs aren't micro enough. You know, and neighborhoods.
So we're all over the place, but tonight, instead of going through and finishing off the top 400, what we're going to do tonight is basically just going to be kind of like a long bonus episode, so that way we could buy ourselves a little bit of time for me to get back up into the upper Midwest, and JB and I can finish out the top 400. So tonight, we're just going to be working through 5 of the albums from the Reddit Snub list, and so... The first one that we're going to be talking about tonight is It Still Moves from My Morning Jacket.
Yeah. And we did talk about this last week. We did talk about this on the last episode, Mike.
Oh.
Yeah. We even laid out the albums that we were doing. So yeah, awesome. We're doing like Mike said, we're doing It Still Moves, My Morning Jacket. We're doing Undertow by Tool.
Mm-hmm. We're going to then talk about Dirt, the second album from Alice in Chains.
Then we're going to do Animals by Pink Floyd.
And we're going to round up tonight's long bonus show by talking about In the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson. Yeah. Possibly one of the most egregious, this might be the most egregious snub of fucking all the snubs that we've talked about thus far. But
I think that is one of them that you could argue for sure. I think there's maybe 2 tonight, in my opinion, that you could argue for the most egregious snub. But really, I think all of these are worth talking about, in terms of them potentially being snubs. This is going to be like, these are all great albums. I'm excited to talk about each of them pretty much, more or less equally. So these are all snubs for sure.
Absolutely. So, what do you say? You want to kick it off? You want to jump into My Morning Jacket?
Yeah, let's kick it off. So, My Morning Jacket, It Still Moves from 2003.
We don't have any write-up on this, right? Like, normally we would read the dumbass description that Rolling Stone gives us, but we don't have that.
We could read Wikipedia if we wanted to.
The first paragraph of Wikipedia. It sounds like the best possible substitute.
Yeah, you know what? I will do that. So this is just straight off of Wikipedia, you guys, and I'm just going to basically read the little intro that they put at the top here. And I'm just killing time as I pull it up is all I'm doing right now as I continue speaking. Okay, so It Still Moves is the third album by the rock band My Morning Jacket. The album garnered positive reviews and is often considered the band's best work alongside Z. The song Run Through is included in Rolling Stone's 100 Greatest Guitar Songs. The album also marks the first appearance of drummer Patrick Hallahan as well as the final appearances of guitarist Johnny Quaid and keyboardist Danny Cash. I'm thinking that maybe Rolling Stone just took the first paragraph of all these Wikipedia articles and did that as their description on their list.
That very well could be what they're doing, those lazy shits.
Not spending enough money on those journalists, I guess.
Well, yeah, copywriters.
Synopsis on their own.
I'm assuming that you guys are like me, and that you guys all, like both of you, have a lot of experience with this album. Is what my guess would be.
So I had more experience personally with Z, but I had a little bit. I had some experience with these, and certainly with some tunes. A lot of My Morning Jacket that I listened to is I liked the live My Morning Jacket, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So I knew several of these songs, especially the ones that they play live a lot. But so I hadn't spent a whole lot of time listening to this record. I mean, I have before. Don't get me wrong, but this is your favorite MMJ record, isn't that right, Mike?
It's it's a really close tie, because I'm just like you guys. I really love Z, and Okonos, the live album, is really spectacular to listen to as well. But listening to this again and listening to it, with intent, and I say that there's a couple of tracks on this album that are just they're really special to me, and just like I think all great music, for me, music is like a mile marker at different points in my life, and especially albums that I just really listen to a lot kind of serve as those signposts and reminders. And there's definitely songs on this record that, are time machines, right? Like we've heard other guests talk about and everything else. There's some huge time capsules on this record for me that take me back to just big moments, big times in my life. Not all fun, not all good. Some of these songs are hauntingly beautiful and reminders about hard times, shitty things to try to get through. But these songs helped. So
nice.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, Mike. You might be I love this album, love My Morning Jacket, but I wonder. I don't know that JB's been to My Morning Jacket shows. Have you ever seen them live? I
have. Yeah, I've seen them live 3 times now. Yeah.
They have we're all familiar with Fish, but they're one of those bands that's almost kind of in that same realm of having a cult live following that people just love to see them.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what I also got introduced to My Morning Jacket. Honestly, I think it was from an episode of American Dad, and it was like a joke, and they went to an My Morning Jacket show. And they were talking about how it was a cult experience. And I was like, well, that seems interesting. I'm going to have to check out this band. So I listened to their live stuff. I freaking loved it. And then started going through all their other stuff, studio recordings. And this album I like the most because I think this has got, most, a lot of this album is some of their really big live tracks. These are the big songs that they kind of save for the last, or these are their biggest live songs, I think, the ones that people react the most positively to, Megiddo, Golden, and definitely One Big Holiday.
One Big Holiday, right.
Time. Yeah. There's a festival named after it, for God's sake. That's what they call their festival.
Yeah, their Mexico festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Steam Engine, too. Steam Engine is one of those songs that when they play Steam Engine live, boy, the crowd really goes apeshit. And I can sympathize with the apeshitters because, Steam Engine is there's 2 tracks on this album that, in my goofy little rating system that JB and I use, there's two tracks on this album that I marked with either 4 or 5 stars. And one of them is Steam Engine because again, it's one of those time capsule songs for me. And the way that song builds and the way that Jim James creates just unbelievable emotion with his voice. It's a really, really special track. And the other one for me is I Will Sing You Songs. That might be one of the most beautiful songs I think that any band has ever put on an album. And I just adore it endlessly.
That song is fantastic. Yeah. One thing that stuck out to me on I Will Sing You Songs is one of my favorite jazz guitar players of all time is Wes Montgomery. I don't know if you guys are are familiar with him at all. But he has this very signature technique that is often imitated, and it's this octave thing where he goes up and down his guitar, and he plays a melody, but he plays it in octaves, and he's like finger picking it, where he plucks one octave with his thumb and a higher octave of the same middle finger, and he just kind of, and that technique is used on that song. So that was, when I heard that, I was like, I'm in. Because I just love that guy.
Best jazz guitarist with all of the fingers on his left hand.
Yeah, not counting Django Reinhardt is what you're saying there.
Yeah. There's two different leagues.
Yeah.
There's like, do you have all of your fingers, and do you not have all of your fingers? And
yeah, if you don't, then and you can still play faster than any other jazz guitar player. Then something devilish is going on there. Yeah.
What's your favorite track on this, Justin?
It's tough. Or maybe it was tough. Like, so when I revisited this album for the purpose of this conversation, I just think that I've never heard a song like Megiddo that I dare someone to listen to this song and not it's in a very simple timing. A lot of these are, and it's like, it's so upbeat and it's a very positive song. Like, because you don't really honestly, I never know what Jim James is saying. It doesn't matter. Absolutely does not matter. It's but like the vibe I get, it's like this overwhelmingly positive vibe from this song. Yep. Very easy beat, starts off like, there's some singing, and then all of a sudden there's like this great like power chord section at the end, and like really basic guitar. So it's just one of the most fun songs that like I can think of. Like, it's on a lot of playlists for me, just because it's upbeat, gets people like happy and energized. So I love that song for that reason.
Yeah. It's fantastic. I agree with you. And like some of the thoughts I was having just while I was listening to that very first song is just that Jim James, which I think he's the kind of the guy that writes most of these songs. Am I right in that?
Yeah,
okay.
He writes all of them, I believe.
Yeah, he's a master of simplicity. It's more about like getting the most you can possibly get out of limited, like a smaller palette of colors, but just arranging it in just the optimal way. And in that sense, not necessarily musically at all, but like in that sense, he reminds me of Tom Petty, because Tom Petty is the guy that's like, nothing he writes is overly complex, but he's just well known as one of the most fantastic arrangers. Like, you listen to a Tom Petty song, and every section, when it comes to the next section, it's like, obviously that's what it should have done. It shouldn't have gone anywhere other than where it just went right there, because he had an ear for that. And I think that Jim James has a similar ear for that level of arrangement in songwriting, which is just as important as like the parts you write. Like, you can write some fantastic parts, and if you arrange them poorly, it's not going to come out right. Your point's not going to get across.
Yeah.
That's also the kind of guitar player he is too. Like, I think that everything you just said as an arranger or a composer comes through when he's playing guitar, whether it's live or just like, when he's solos. So like, I feel terrible. I don't know the name of the current My Morning Jacket guitar player, but he's really good.
Carl Brommel.
Carl Brommel. Yeah, his name definitely should be mentioned. Yep. Anytime people talk about My Morning Jacket, he wasn't on this album, but
he's on the next album and everyone subsequent.
Like, technically, which is to say, when it comes to technical facility with the guitar, he is a far superior guitar player to Jim,
for sure.
To Jim James. Yeah, without question.
But Jim James he takes a lot of the guitar solos with My Morning Jacket, because like JB was saying, like he puts the right stuff in the right spot and it works.
Yes.
And he stays pretty true to the studio recording a lot of the time. And he'll expand live as a lot of people do, but like it's kind of, like the Grateful Dead's a good example. Like, you didn't see Bob Weird taking a lot of solos because he was definitely the second fiddle on that stage, and maybe Jim James is second fiddle technically, but like, he's taking the solos because he's playing all the stuff that everybody wants to hear.
Yeah. There's something to be said for just delivering exactly what the common ear is wanting and desiring.
Hunting.
Yeah. Oh my God, I want to dive into that, JB. Tell me more about the common ear.
It sounded kind of pretentious.
But yeah, is the common ear, is that like
I'm talking about like your guys' ears,
Oh, so that's similar to plebeian ears, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I just mean the average, like what I didn't mean anything by that at all. I just meant like a regular person listening. Like,
no, you didn't mean anything, but like it's your subconscious, like just in
right,
you. Yeah. Like I saw this come out of you. It's like these people who lack the knowledge that you have.
Common-eared fool. That's my new insult.
So one thing that I found kind of interesting in reading through when I was listening to this album, it seemed like a routine knock, whether it was Metacritic, AllMusic, Rolling Stone. The biggest knock that I could find on this album was length, right? Just the song length, which I found kind of fascinating because, there may have been a song. I mean, there's maybe a couple of songs that I could say, yeah, maybe you could trim that up a little bit. But, I mean, not really. Did you guys feel that way? Did you think that any of these got long in the tooth at all?
You're going to hate me for saying this, and don't take this the wrong way because I love this song. But during the first half of Steam Engine, I was like, maybe it's a little exploratory and like ambling along a little bit, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in this part for this long.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of resolved itself and it picked up really nicely at the end,
But at the end of an album, that's where you put that kind of song. So yeah. I feel like they wrote that song. I don't know if it's not a concept album. So like, they probably had that song and hadn't done the track listing yet. And I think they put it in the right spot given the length.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of agree with you because the build that you get at the end of Steam Engine, like after they do, because I know what you're talking about, JB. Like it does feel a little meandering at the top of that song, which is weird because like he instantly comes in and starts singing at the top of that song, and then you get this kind of weird meandering before you really get into that deep build at the end of the song.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna, Justin, I think you're right? Like the song placement on this album that's where you would expect a song like this. And I think it's kind of funny because Just One Thing, the track right before there, that's probably one of the most concise songs on the entire album. It's only about 3.5 minutes. It might be the shortest song on the album. And it's really sweet and it's really nice. And then that leads into, Steam Engine, which does meander. Like it kind of wanders a little bit in the middle of the song before it gets into that just kind of growing crescendo at the end. I like it though. I like the way that it kind of gets lost a little bit.
And just like the outro makes it all worth it, like the entire wait, because like the build up at the end of that is just so great. Like it just basically like a tapestry of layers is being weaved, like both instrumental and vocal. It's incredible. I love it.
Yeah.
So no complaints against that song, but just if I had to answer that specific question, like were any songs too long, I might point that out,
That's fair. Did you feel that way, Justin? Like, do you think that's a fair critique of this album? Because it's a long fucking album, dude. This album's like almost an hour and 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it's only like 11. Well, no, maybe it's 12 tracks. But
so, I mean, I think I'm surprised JB came at it from that angle or like saw it that way, because like it seems like him and I both came to My Morning Jacket from the live stuff. And so like if you come to it from the live stuff, you're almost expecting like, this kind of expanded part of the song. And so I definitely you don't listen to it and it doesn't seem like a very basic studio recording, because it is very long. Like, I mean, a lot of other albums on this record are like, not this record, other albums on this list that we're going to talk through today are like 40 minutes long.
Yeah.
This is 71 minutes and 48 seconds.
Yeah.
So, but coming to My Morning Jacket as a fan of the live work, it didn't bother me at all. Like I was waiting for all of it. I was ready.
Again, not that it bothered me, but just like as an answer to that question that was posed, if I had to, like, if I was like pulling teeth to find an example of that, I
mean, your face may be pixelated on my screen, but I could see there's a little twitch. You're bothered. You're put on.
I'm triggered. Yeah. Couple little just like music theory nerd kind of things I wanted to point out on this record. A very common theme throughout this, and I think maybe My Morning Jacket in general, is that first of all, he does a lot of playing going between minor and major keys in the same song, and more specifically, he does a lot of his verses are in a minor key, and then his choruses resolve to a major key, and it just creates this kind of sweet bliss coming out of the verse into the chorus that makes the chorus pop even that much more. So that was kind of a really cool thing that I noticed on this record that he does maybe on like more than half of the songs. So
yeah. What do you I mean, you know, we're talking about this as a snub. Do you think, I mean, what do you think? Do you think this one deserves to be on the list?
So in my opinion, if there's going to be a My Morning Jacket on record on this list, it's going to be Z. And I think this record is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I think it's really great. But I don't know if there's going to be 2 My Morning Jacket records on the 500 greatest albums of all time. And I think if you got to have one, it's got to be Z. For me, it has all those, the favorite songs that I would want to see live. And it has where the full band came together. It has Carl Brommel on the guitar, like the main touring band that you know and you love and that you see. It has that band. So for me, this would not be the snub, but it could arguably be one, and I would not have a problem with it. But if there's going to be one, it's going to be Z for me.
What do you think, Justin?
I mean, so for me, I would pick this. I would pick this album over Z. And honestly, I think that just the whole theme of the list, it seems like it's early stuff gets picked. It's like there's a band that stumbles into like this niche area that no one else has explored, and they get recognized for that because it's influential and a whole entire genre can be created out of that. But I'd like to see more like later work get recognized, and that's where I think, like, for me, my favorite album by My Morning Jacket is the Waterfall series.
Oh wow.
Like the Waterfall and the Waterfall 2, which I didn't even know came out last year. I found it like 3 weeks ago. I was like, are you kidding me? Album last year, and I didn't even know.
Yeah, and it's a jam too, right?
Yeah, COVID will get you down, man. You miss a Morning Jacket release. But like I think that's like they really like have come, not they hadn't come into their own before, but like it's some of their best compositional work, their best instrumentation. It's incredible. And so I guess if it came to My Morning Jacket records, maybe for this list, it would be like this album that we're talking about, It Still Moves, would be the one that they would put forward and say, hey, if you're going to pick us, pick this one. But I don't think I would put it on the list myself, just because it seems like, I don't know, I think it's kind of like a cult movie. Like, it's like everybody knows it's good and everybody can appreciate it, but they don't want to listen to it over and over again, or they don't want to see it over and over again. And like, not to say that that's our situation. I mean, I listen to some of these songs like multiple times a week already. Like they just come up on the playlist and all that. But yeah, in terms of like who was making this list, like I can see how it's not on there, and it doesn't bother me that it was snubbed.
Yeah, I'm with both you guys. My reason, and again, I really, really love this record a lot, like really intensely. But my issue with the record is kind of the lo-fi nature of it, right? Like, and I don't know if you noticed this, JB, but this was recorded. It was fucking recorded above that garage again. It's like above the Cadillac Studios in Shelbyville, just like what was the name of the first? Oh. Not Tennessee Fire, but
Tennessee Fire, right?
No, that's what it was. There was the one. Was it the Tennessee Fire?
The one that we did was Tennessee Fire.
Yes, it was Tennessee Fire. Okay, so just like that one was like really lo-fi because it was recorded above the garage. This one was too, and you can hear it in there, and just all
better. I thought
it definitely sounded better than the first one. But if you go out and you check out where they recorded it, they fucking recorded it in the same place in Shelbyville. And there's that aspect, but wow. I'm with you. Like, I love the Waterfall. I really love Circuital. Circuital to me is one of my favorite My Morning Jacket records too. But if you're going to put a My Morning Jacket record on this list, I think that I'm probably on JB's team, only because I think when you listen to Z, you get such a wide breadth of kind of genre bending that I think to me is the most wonderful part about what My Morning Jacket does, right? They blend almost like a country with a folk sound, with kind of a jam alternative type sound too. And I really feel like Z's probably the best representation of all of that just strange kind of witch's brew that they can do.
Yeah.
But again, like nobody should sleep on this record because this record is really good. And to me, if you think about when it was recorded in 2004, there wasn't anybody that sounded like this. And I still think it's hard to find somebody that sounds like what Jim James does. So,
yeah,
you know, and and obviously we're going to talk about Z here down the road. And so whenever we get to that, that'll just be, you know, as you put it last week, JB, just a giant circle jerk that we get to talk about it. And we'll just, you know, just fucking eat bukkake all over the place and just love how much Z is wonderful. Woo. So
yeah.
What do you say? Should we move on?
And just
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, real quick, just one more. I don't want to spend too much time on My Morning Jacket, but Justin mentioned Fish earlier in comparison to these guys, and I just want to point out, like, it's kind of weird because there seems to be a lot of crossover between in like the live fan base, which in my opinion is kind of weird. Like musically, they're not really the same at all. It's almost it's kind of weird, like, kind of anomalous situation where like there's really is a lot of crossover. Like a lot of people like to go see Fish, like to go see My Morning Jacket. It has to be something to do with whatever feeling you get when you're at the show, you know?
I think it's the ethos of the band. It's like we're into playing, like we like playing music together and being creative in the moment. And which honestly, it's not that studio musicians aren't the same. It's just that they don't sell tickets and do that in front of people. And so I think, I do think it's like kind of like an ethos of the band thing. Like I agree with you. The music's very different. And like, I don't know if My Morning Jacket has ever done like a 35-minute of Dundante off of Z, but like it's an ethos thing. Like that people appreciate, like they're here and they're going to be in front of us and we're going to love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, Justin.
I do too.
But yeah, we should move on though.
All right. Up next,
we get into. Do you have that pulled up on Wikipedia, Mike? The next one. I'm
a step ahead of you, bro. All right, I got it. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about the second studio album. Technically, the first LP, I guess, from the band Tool. The title is Undertow. According to Wikipedia, they say Undertow is the debut studio album by American rock band Tool. Fuck you. That's not true. Released on April 6, 1993 by Zoo Entertainment. Produced by the band and Sylvia Massey, it was recorded from October to December 92 at Sound City Studios in Van Nuys and Grandmaster Recorders in Hollywood. This album includes some tracks the band decided not to release on their debut EP, Opiate. Whoever the fuck wrote that, fuck off. I mean, I guess they made a distinction between studio album and EP, but whatever. According to AllMusic, Undertow helped heavy metal music remain prominent as a mainstream musical style and allowed several later bands to break through to the mainstream. It was released at a time when grunge was at the height of its popularity and pop punk was slowly beginning to gather mainstream attention. AllMusic saw the album's success in the, quote, striking, haunting visuals and complimented the album's nihilistic yet wistful mood. As of 2010, Undertow sold over 2.9 million copies, certified double platinum. What'd you guys think?
The last time we talked with Justin, we talked about Opiate.
We talked about Tool, right? Yeah, it was Opiate.
Yeah.
I feel like this is an attempted conversion effort. Honestly, the first time worked. Like it totally took the first time, so you don't have to keep trying.
Are you saying it didn't work this time, Justin?
No, it did. No, it worked the first time. This album has a lot of, but I think. Like if you did the Spotify thing, like Sober is Tool's #1 song. It's on this album. So like I'm more familiar with this than I was with Opiate. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I liked Opiate more personally, but
did you like it more because it was new, Justin? Because it was novel to you?
I think so. I think there's probably a bit of that, but I also think that it was a little bit more. It was more complex. Like I think there was more like off-metered like music in Opiate than there was in this album, and I appreciated that. Like I feel like they weren't holding back like their like deepest desires to like play some complex shit on Opiate, and in this one, and I even have this great pulled quote from Tool about this album about how it was like it was more of a commercial effort on their behalf.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's that quotation? Will you read that quotation?
I would love to.
Yeah, read
it's so
that.
funny. So their album artwork was censored, and a lot of record stores wouldn't sell it because of the artwork. And this is what spawned the quote. It came to our attention recently that many stores across our fine and open-minded nation would not stock Undertow because of our explicit artwork. Although we loathe being censored, we want your money, but it's strike through. Like they have "we want your money," it's like a strike through font. We still want, and then so instead of that, although we loathe being censored, we still want your money crossed out. We still want you to hear our music, so we took it out. However, it is available to you at no extra cost. Fill out the form, stick it in an envelope, mail it in, and we will send you the original artwork. Love, Tool. So
Which is amazing.
And they just changed the artwork to just a giant barcode. is all they had on the album artwork.
Yeah.
So,
and this, so when this CD was released, right? Because I'm pretty sure everybody bought music on CD in 1993 and in 1994 or whatnot. Dude, this thing was loaded up with fucking crazy art, you know, and it was all done by Adam Jones. Adam Jones basically did all of the artwork for the album. And Adam Jones also plays guitar for Tool. And there's just, I mean, there is crazy shit in there. Apparently in Europe, they shipped the Jewel CD cases with a clear bottom, right? Like where the CD actually sits inside of that tray. In the US, they didn't, though. In the US, it was black, right? It was a dark one. But if you were smart enough and shrewd enough to like pop out that inner black holder case, they actually printed artwork on the back side of the slip that sits inside of that CD. Like that's where you got the picture of the cow licking its own ass. And then on the back side, there was like the pig with all the forks in it. And then when you flip through the actual CD case itself, basically everybody had needles and fucking pins sticking out of their head and whatnot. And it was crazy shit. Like really crazy shit. I get why Walmart was like, fuck you guys. We're not selling this shit.
Get the shit out of here.
Exactly. But musically, I think that's funny. Because to me, when I listen to Opiate and when I listen to Undertow, and it's largely Danny Carey, like I think Danny Carey was just so much more inventive with what he was doing on the drums on this record relative to what he did on the Opiate EP. Like Opiate was pretty straightforward, just in terms of his drumming, and I felt like this is where Danny Carey started to become the Danny Carey that everybody just really started to go gaga over by the time that you get to Enema and Lateralis, right, where he's really peak.
I kind of agree with both of you guys. And I think Mike's like his point about the drummer is absolutely, I agreed with that 100%. But there were just a couple songs on Opiate that for me meant more to me than any of the songs on this one. And I really, just to make it clear, I loved this record. This is fantastic. And I remember when we first talked about Tool with Opiate on that first album, or the first episode we talked about Tool, I had said that I was really a convert at that point, and I was like, I finally kind of got Tool. Like I had attempted to listen, and not that it was hard or anything, but it didn't really click until I had listened to Opiate in depth like 3 times in a row, and it really did. And after listening to Undertow, 3 times in a row or more in depth, I'm like a converted Tool fan for sure. Like I'm going to make it a goal to go see them live at the next opportunity I possibly can. And I'll, consume anything they put out going forth. So I'm like a Tool fan now for sure. But there were just a couple songs on Opiate that I think reached higher heights for me, just in terms of songwriting, than anything on here. And Justin's totally right. I think that the timing signature play on this one was less adventurous, and I think it gets more adventurous on Enema. But there's a lot on this record that feels like it's an odd time signature, but it's not, which is kind of a cool thing to be able to do. You know, like there were several songs where I was like, this has to be a weird time signature. So I like sat down and like counted it out and I was like, oh, it's fucking 4/4. It's just like a weird syncopated riff that they did that made it feel weird. Impressive, you know, in and of itself.
Yeah.
There's really only one, right? There's really, I'm trying to think here, but I think it's not 4 Degrees. Maybe it's Swamp Song. I think Swamp Song is one of the only songs where you legitimately get that odd time signature. And I think Swamp Song is like it felt like it was probably 7/4 is what it felt like. Cause it was like it was either a 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 3. What was that?
Can you guys hear me okay right now?
Yeah, you froze up for a minute.
With bated breath.
We had a little bit of a freeze up for a minute. On Swamp Song, I wrote it down. I had it pegged as 6/4 time. So just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You should listen back and see if you agree with me or disagree with me. But
okay,
I had written it down because I felt there were several tunes on this record that were 6/4, including Undertow. The next song was also a 6/4 signature. So
yes, and that I agree with you on. Like Undertow, I agree with you on completely. And maybe it might not be Swamp Song that I'm thinking of, but there was one because I was listening to it on my drive down to Texas, and when I was doing that, I was trying to like actively figure out some of what these time signatures were. And I agree with you. I think that a lot of these are straight up, but now I want to go back and I kind of want to listen to 4 Degrees again, because 4 Degrees might be it. But the other thing about this record, and again, you know, we've talked ad nauseum about how I'm not much of a lyrics guy, but this is one of those records that I really like. There are some lyrics on this record that I absolutely adore. They're really fucking dark and crazy, particularly Prison Sex. I love Prison Sex so much. Like I can't even...
There at I love prison sex. Put that as a GIF.
Mike loves prison sex. Let it be known.
That's got to be a meme.
Mike's
right?
a big fan of prison sex.
Mike's a big fan of prison sex. That's got to be a meme coming up. Lyrically, though, that song, you know, you read the title and you're like, oh wow, that's kind of gross. And then when you read the lyrics and when you listen to what he's saying, you're like, holy fuck, this is fucking crazy.
You know, that song, I was looking at the track listing on Spotify. Like, I was listening to it on Spotify, and on the track listing, only 3 songs are explicit. And it's like Sober, Crawl Away, and Swamp Song. Not Prison Sex. Prison Sex, just generally, apparently has a theme, not explicit in the eyes of whoever censors
Family Murder. I heard one right there. Yeah.
Family song about prison sex.
Did you have some favorite lines from that song, Mike?
Yeah. Like I love the build in that song towards the back of that song where he sings, what does he say? I have become, what the hell is it? I have been, so, I need some kind of temporary sanity. This moment there's shit, blood, and cum on my hands. And it's literally just the craziest, it's the craziest fucking line. And if you listen to the whole rest of the song, I mean, it's literally about, it's about this guy that like he's literally just getting raped and raped and raped. And then he ends up becoming the one that ends up doing the rating. Yeah. So that's what it is. It's, I have found some kind of temporary sanity in this shit, blood, and cum on my hands. And then he says, I've come, and then the next line is, I've come round full circle, because the first part of the song is basically about him being sodomized. And he said, I've come round full circle, my lamb and martyr. This will be over soon. You look so precious. You look so precious. You look so
Holy
precious.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah.
It's really, look into the lyrics.
It's really crazy. And actually, like the stanza before that, because that's like this huge build at the end of the song. And it says, got your hands bound, head down, eyes, and your eyes closed. You look so precious now. and then it kind of devolves, and then it builds into that last part of the song. It's fucking wild. It's really wild, man.
Did Maynard do?
Lord, I didn't want to hear that word precious. In that, it just makes it more disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. And then when you couple that with just the tone and the feel of the song, which it starts off feeling like the feel of that song in the beginning is kind of like, I mean, it's not happy-go-lucky because there's no song on this record that's happy-go-lucky, but it's not really all that bad. But then by the time that you get to about halfway through the song, it really delves off into like this kind of dark sound between the bass and the drums. And then when you realize what Maynard is singing, you're just like, oh my God, this is so dark. So dark.
Yeah. Another theme I've noticed in Maynard's vocals is he always sounds so like accusatory. Like he's like constantly berating someone for their behavior. Like a lot. Like even on the first song, like you lie, cheat, and steal. Like that's like the most blatant example of it. But like, you know, like he does that an awful lot where he's like just straight up condemning someone. Object of his songwriting, I guess.
What'd you guys think about the Henry Rollins feature on Bottom?
On Bottom. Yeah, that was the little spoken word thing, huh?
Yeah, Mr. Rollins.
That was fantastic. I was excited to see that on there. This was when he was with Rollins Band, right?
Yes.
Which is a band that I've never listened to. I don't even know. I've never listened to a single Rollins Band song. I'm pretty Black Flag versed, but not Rollins Band at all. So
Rollins Band is fun. That's a fun little, it's a fun tunnel to crawl into. Yeah, it's a good one.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this record. Like this whole record, this was how I got into Tool, and literally just everything. I mean, really everything on this record. Probably one of my least favorite songs on this record is probably 4 Degrees or maybe Intolerance. But everything else on this record it's really phenomenal to me. The title track of Undertow is spectacular to me as well. And I also really like Flood, which is the last, I'm going to say, real song on the record, because Disgustipated it's not really
more of an experiment.
Well, and even on the CD, when this was originally released, the first 5 minutes of Disgustipated were listed as track 10. But when you put the CD into a CD player, it comes up with 69 tracks. And after about the first 5 minutes of Disgustipated, each track was only like 2 seconds long, and it would just keep filtering through until you got to 69. And then track 69 started with, there's just, I don't know, there's like 6 or 7 minutes of crickets, right? It's just like ambient outdoor noise. And that's where track 69 picked up. And then if you listen to the whole thing, you finally got to the weird, creepy fucking poem at the end where the guy's talking about waking up in a ditch and your color was
now blue.
Yeah. And how blue is your color?
Yeah. So
you
I think
look across the field and you see 2 people. Now red is your color. It's like, oh,
yeah,
fuck, man.
What the fuck does that mean? I don't know. Tracks 10 through 68 were like 1 second long, I think. You know.
Yes.
And then So, well, there was one thing I was about to say. Speaking about the Henry Rollins verse on Bottom. So the end of that was just so badass when it like builds back up into the fucking to Maynard joins back in, and they join in. They sing the line, "And my fear is naked," like together.
Yes, together.
And like he sings it, and it's just like fucking right back to it. God, I was like, woo, pumped up.
It's a smoke show. Did you pick up like the first 15 seconds of Crawl Away, which is the next track? Did you notice
the music thing?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I noticed it.
And you got to crank that shit up in your headphones to really get a glimpse of like what that shit is. And if you're not careful and if you're not ready for it, you know, blast your ear out when that fucking guitar finally comes in.
You're like, wait, what's going on? Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I loved that one. And that song in general was like speed metal almost. Do you know what I mean?
You think so?
Like listen back, yeah. I mean, with that in mind, listen back to it. I know you know that record super well, but like,
Yeah.
there's some like serious like fucking tremolo guitar riffs and like double bass drumming.
Yes.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A fuck ton of double. Yes, a fuck ton of double bass winds up in that song. It's towards the end, right? It's towards the back end of that song. But absolutely, yeah. From that standpoint, I agree with you.
Yeah.
So,
sorry. Go ahead, Justin.
I don't have a ton to say about this one because for me, and I don't know if this is just, I don't know, maybe it's just how I'm aging, but I really can only listen to like metal and grunge and like heavy rock like in the gym. And so because it's so good. It's so good in the gym. But like my recommendation would be to anybody struggling to get into metal of any kind and Tool included, which it's not metal, it's more grunge than metal in my opinion, but like just if you work out, listen to it while you work out, whether you're running or lifting weights or like I don't know, like doing MMA or something, like listen to Tool and you'll probably like it a lot more. Because like, it fits the vibe. It's like working out is like self-punishment, but like it's a positive thing at the same time. And I feel like that's what Tool kind of like represents in a way.
Yeah. I think that's a wonderful segue, and I want you to hold on to that thought, especially given the next record that we're going into. But before we get there, and Justin, I think I know where you're going to fall on this. Obviously, is this a snub? Like, would you put this on the list?
So I feel the same way about this one that I feel about My Morning Jacket, in that it's like I think people know, even if you're not into it, I think like people hear and you hear the buzz, you're like, okay, if you're into this, this is about as good as it gets. Like this is the best version of this that you're going to find. But that's a small group of people, or maybe I wouldn't say small, but it's not a big enough group of people to maybe put it on this list.
I gotcha.
Like honestly, like yeah, for me, for you look at other albums you see on the list and you think, come on, like let's just do a quick trade.
Yeah.
But in aggregate, based on the people that chose the list, like I can totally see how it's left off. And because I think it's like the group of people that appreciate it, it's kind of more of a cult following and not a popular following. And so I get it.
Yeah. How about you, JB? What do you think?
Yeah, so my answer is going to be somewhere in between. It's going to be kind of similar to my answer for My Morning Jacket, okay? I do think a Tool album belongs on this list, 100%. And I mean that for sure. Like, especially with them holding the candle of heavy metal in the grunge era. And really, I don't 100%, Justin. I think this is a lot heavier and a lot more dissonant and doomy than any grunge stuff. And even compared to the next album we're going to talk about, which is Alice in Chains, which I think is heavy metal grunge, I think this is a lot more in the line of heavy metal than that even is. I think it's less grungy. For sure. I think these guys really held heavy metal through a solid 10-year period or something like that, where otherwise it wasn't being like super well represented in the mainstream. But I don't think this is the album. I think Enema is going to be the album that, if you had to ask me, does the Tool album belong on the list? Definitely Enema, and it's not going to be low either. It's going to be, it's not going to be in the bottom 100 even. So,
yeah,
I Tool belongs on the list, but I think it's Enema.
Yeah, I think I think that this, much like Opiate, hints at what Tool is going to do later on in later albums. I think that this is an evolution for them, right? But it's not the pinnacle of what they do. And so I love it. Everybody should go out there. I want you guys to go back and listen to Prison Sex now that you know what the lyrics are.
I don't know if I can handle it, Mike.
I know. Listen, it's fucking dark, dude. It's fucking dark. But it's a great record. If anybody, if you haven't heard it, you should go and listen to it. But I'm probably not going to put it on the list because I think that the real argument is going to be between Lateralis and Enema. Like, I think that becomes a really, really compelling debate about, because it's probably only one record that Tool has on this list, and which one do you do, right? Do you do Enema or do you do Lateralis? So
if you had to pick one right now, is it? And I'm sure we'll get another chance to talk about this when we do. when we do an episode about both of those albums eventually, for sure. But if you had to pick one right now, what would it be?
I've listened to Enema more recently, and so that's why if you're putting a gun to my head right now, I would say Enema. But I almost feel like when we get to that, JB, the next Snub episode that we do when we're addressing Tool, we should do both Enema and Lateralis in the same one. I mean, not even a versus, but like we'll do it as a bonus Snub episode, but we should do them both at the same time. That way, both albums will be fresh in your mind, both albums will be fresh in my mind, and I think it'll become a really interesting debate because I really think that it's highly debatable. I really believe that. So
I think that's a great idea. We can plan on like a slightly extended bonus episode, and that could be really great.
It could be fun.
We'll plan on that. Doing Enema and Lateralis, and I'm sure we'll do another My Morning Jacket snub.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, we'll hit. Not to cycle back, but we'll hit Z for sure too. So don't get upset if you're a My Morning Jacket fan and you want to hear us talk about Z. We'll get there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But on to the next one tonight.
Okay, I've got Wikipedia pulled up. So this is Alice in Chains, Dirt from 1992, and I'm going to read Wikipedia's description of it. Dirt is the second studio album by the American rock band Alice in Chains, released on September 29th, 1992 through Columbia Records. Peaking at number 6 on the Billboard 200 chart, the album was also well received by music critics. It has since been certified 4 times platinum by the RIAA and gone on to sell 5 million copies worldwide, making Dirt the band's highest selling album to date. It is the band's last album recorded with all 4 original members, as bassist Mike Starr was fired from the band in early January 1993. The album spawned 5 singles, which I'm not going to mention right now. Dirt was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Hard Rock Performance. The songs on the album focused on depression, pain, anger, antisocial behavior, relationships, drug addiction, war, death, and other emotionally charged topics. That's a wide range of themes.
I think you're supposed to call out a trigger warning before you list horrendous shit like that.
Retroactive trigger warnings who are concerned.
Super sorry if you're triggered already.
But yeah, I think that's enough of Wikipedia to read.
Yeah.
Dirt, Alice in Chains. Boys, what'd you think?
I think this is fucking criminal that this record is not on this list.
100% agree. Criminal act.
I mean, it's fucking criminal to the tune that if you dig down a little bit deeper into that Wikipedia page, JB, what you'll find is that even Rolling Stone ranked this the number 6 grunge album of all time. And I'm assuming that they didn't only put 5 fucking grunge albums on this list, right?
Maybe there's only 5 and the 6 just doesn't make the cut, Mike.
I have an answer to this.
I'm just kidding. You have an answer? Don't give us an answer. We don't want spoilers.
Oh, sorry. You're right. I could tell you how many grunge albums are on the list. And I can tell you which grunge albums are on the list, but I will not. I will refrain.
Tell us how many, but don't tell us which. Are you okay with that, Mike?
Yeah, I'm totally okay with that.
There are 5 grunge albums.
Holy shit! So literally, there's 5 on the list, and this is the 6th. That is too funny.
That's so absurd. Really?
I wonder if you didn't know.
Didn't know. You really didn't know.
Yeah, good guess. They literally put 5 on there, and I am. I'm looking at them, and you would be disappointed. I think we'd all be disappointed by the list. But anyway, the 5 that.
Yeah.
But we already knew that the list sucks. That's the whole premise of the whole thing.
Yeah, this list is terrible.
Say it out loud.
Why are we even surprised? So last time that we talked about Alice in Chains, Mike, we had a little bit of it wasn't an argument at all, but like I was saying, wow, I can't believe that Facelift is, in my opinion, probably one of their best records, and it's just nuts that's not going to be on the list because it has Man in the Box. Remember, I kept saying that. Kept going back to that, and you were saying, I don't know, dude. Dirt is almost just as good. You kept saying that, and I was like, yeah, but I got to say, after digging into it this week, I'm conceding on that for sure. This album, Facelift was great, really, really great, and could be argued to be a snub. This is better. Dirt is incredible, and if there is an Alice in Chains snub, this is it.
Yeah,
and it should have been on the list.
Yeah, I mean this whole album from top to bottom, and it's not a concept album, but in so many ways, especially when you think about just, it kind of made me think about Elliott Smith, because Elliott Smith, in a weird kind of way, was a concept album just because so many of those songs dealt with his addiction issues and everything else. And you're getting that same thing here, but you're just getting it in such a radically different format. And for me, Alice in Chains, the lack of representation on this list with Alice in Chains is disgusting to me because no fucking grunge act did vocal harmonies. Nobody did that. That wasn't even fucking on the radar for grunge bands. And yet Alice in Chains, they didn't only pull it off. It's fucking masterful the way that they execute it.
So good, dude. Yeah, the Cantrell Staley harmonies are just incredible, like throughout, and it's just it just elevates the songs to a whole nother level. And especially considering the placement of what I assume is surely the top grunge album on this list, which me and Mike have an ongoing bet, so don't break it to me, Justin. But it's definitely in the top 20, and we had a bet that it was in the top 10. Is Nevermind, and there's no harmonies on that at all. So Mike's exactly right.
No, think of the big contemporary grunge acts of the time, and it's Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and what we all have in common is that you've got this idiosyncratic vocalist, really in a really high register too, a lot of the time. And I think Lane Staley is quite a counterpoint to that.
I'm sorry, Justin, go ahead.
The verses, he's pretty low, and he kind of gets up there in some of the choruses and all that, but he sings in a different way. He's different from his other grunge vocalist contemporaries, and I appreciate it. I think that this band is a great counterpoint to maybe the more well-known grunge acts of the time, or the ones that seem to be more appreciated here 30 years later.
Yeah, I agree with that. Lane's...
Go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You were going.
Oh, I just had a tiny little thing to say. I was going to say he almost has a slight southern rock twang to his voice, just a little bit of it. But sorry to interrupt. You go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to comment that I think of two words when I think of Lane Staley, and it's his howl and his growl, right? Because he does both of those things, and he does them in a way that is so incredibly unique that as soon as you hear his voice, you can't unhear it. And when it comes on, you're like, oh, fuck, yeah, that's Lane Staley. Instantly recognizable.
100% for sure.
Yeah. What were the standouts for you guys? What were your favorite tracks?
Okay, so this is going to be a super basic bitch response. But I think it is the case just because it's true. I think that Rooster is the best Alice in Chains song. For sure. In my opinion. That song is just perfect. It doesn't get any better.
I wrote these are the first four words that I wrote after Rooster. I wrote Jesus, period. And then I wrote Stone Cold Classic.
Dude, this is it's iconic. It doesn't get any better. I think Rooster is incredible. Maybe one of the best grunge songs ever written. I mean, literally,
Yeah, I'm with you. What about you, Justin? What stood out to you?
So, mine's a little more nostalgia based and maybe not as objective, but I love Them Bones because as a kid, the only video game I was ever any good at was Guitar Hero. It's the only reason, perhaps, that I even play guitar today. Well,
He wasn't that good.
the other reason JB helped me out a lot, but Them Bones was featured on Guitar Hero too, and I love Guitar Hero. I think only one person that I know of alive has beat me at Guitar Hero ever. And JB, you know him, it's Riley Rath. He's the only person, and we're 1-1. And because
Riley Rath,
I refused to do a tiebreaker with him because he got better than I was, and so nope, we're tied. We're 1-1, and so yeah, it was a chicken shit. But anyways, so
little side note: Riley Rath is actually coming on the podcast in a couple weeks.
Oh, dude, I'm excited for that.
We are gonna fucking set up this tie-breaking Guitar Hero showdown. Has got to happen.
I'm curious what Riley Rath will say about this. I hate to nerd out on Guitar Hero, but with new TV technology, the lag with an HD TV versus like what an Xbox can put out for Guitar Hero 3. Because believe me, because Riley Rath is a purist, as am I, there is no Guitar Hero to play but Guitar Hero 3 in terms of challenges, or maybe Guitar Hero 2 or 3. But anyways, the lag is very tricky and it's a lot of work to calibrate. But anyways, if we can settle on that, I would be happy to do tiebreaker, assuming he hasn't played in like 10 years, just as I haven't played in 10 years. But
do we just need to find an old like shitty big TV, like not a flat screen TV? Is that what we need to level the playing field?
Well, 2. Yeah.
So like, I mean, he's not going to fly to New York, and I'm not going to fly to Des Moines, right? Or where is he in Ames still? Where's Riley? Is he in Des Moines?
You're going to fly to Des Moines, Justin, and we're going to do yeah.
We're going to sponsoring this because that's who sponsored late night Guitar Hero sessions in the past. But
yeah,
I feel like we should be able to sell tickets to this as soon as we understand when Justin is coming back for the summer, which he already committed to coming back for a couple weeks in the summer. So this feels like an easy setup, right?
We're gonna have a This List Sucks sanctioned rematch, and we're gonna fly out here on the expense account. So don't worry about it. Yeah.
We will ensure that there is no cost incurred, Justin, with you coming out.
So I can fly for free.
Unless you lose, then you have to reimburse us.
Okay.
That's fair. That's fair. Honestly, I will buy all this stuff and I will practice so I can be Riley Rath. But anyways, Them Bones, because it was on Guitar Hero, and that's how I like discovered Alice in Chains, which I don't know, it's the same way I discovered a lot of good music when I was younger, is in the dumbest ways. Like it was on Guitar Hero, or it was like on FIFA, you know, like it was just weird stuff like that. But that's how I got into Alice in Chains, and so I'm standing by, you know, better way to say it is you got to dance with the one that brung you.
Nice. Listen, that's an iconic riff. Like that riff to open the album, and that's where you get Lane Staley's howl, right? Like he's howling in the beginning of that track. It's absolutely killer. For me though, and JB, I'm right there with you. Like I gave Rooster 5 stars. I gave Down in a Hole 4 stars because I think Down in a Hole is a really spectacular song. But the 5-star gem for me on this album is the closer. I love Wood like nobody's business. That to me was just fantastic. Such a killer song.
I think you could argue that song is almost groove metal. Like the bass line of it is like a repetitive groove, not unsimilar to some of the Tool bass lines, I should say.
Yes, I agree with you. It does. It's very reminiscent of Tool, but at the same time, I think that the showcase of what Lane Staley and Jerry do with those vocal harmonies, like that's the centerpiece of that for me. And I think that it stands out in just a really, really beautiful way. And the last 30 to 45 seconds of that song, the outro of that song, where they do that key change and you get the repetition of the chorus and the verse. It's spectacular to me. It's my favorite Alice in Chains song. It's peak Alice in Chains for me on Wood.
Yeah, and I totally get that. I think that's a fantastic song. I loved it. It was a great closer. And to tell you the truth, like I loved every song here. There was nothing. I mean, the Untitled is hardly a song, but like that was fun. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and shout out to Tom Araya from Slayer. Because the lead singer from Slayer is the guy that's screaming, I am ironclad on that track.
Oh, was that who that was? I didn't know
that's
that.
That's Tom Araya from Slayer that's singing that on that track. So yeah.
A lot of this record was what I think was different was it was a little slower than Facelift. A lot of it was almost like doom metal aspects to this, which I'm like a sucker for doom metal. I love it. Just like that slow evil, like down, like that early Sabbath stuff. Like I'm all about it. And there's a lot of that going on here. A lot of the tritone kind of devil's interval stuff that just doesn't sound like it should be the way it is, and it just is just slow and makes you just lose all hope for the future.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because like that style of music, like I think Black Sabbath invented it. Well, I bet a lot of people agree Black Sabbath invented metal, period.
Yep.
But like they have a lot of songs that are like exactly as you described, like that tritone, like that step up to the third. Like it just sounds like as if it's stressful. Like it's almost stressful to hear, but that's that's metal at times. And I
music is tension and resolution. Yeah, music is tension and resolution. And that I was just saying, music is tension and resolution, and that tritone is just pure tension. So stressful is a great way to put it.
Yeah, and I get a lot of Black Sabbath vibes from a lot of the and I think it's doom metal. Like so, Black Sabbath has a lot of things that maybe inspired things other than doom metal, but there's a lot of doom metal that I think you could point right back to Sabbath, and I get a lot of that on this record.
Yep, I agree with you.
I think Sabbath, sure, and yeah, that's clear on this record.
And I also love the fact that they're doing that kind of dark, doomy shit when you combine that with what Lane is singing about. And to me, Junkhead is a great example of that song. Like I love Junkhead.
Yeah.
There's this is one that is lyrically incredibly rich for me. And I love the line where he says, I'll bet you be doing like me and it ain't so bad. And there's just this really, really sweet resolution to the chord when he sings it. But even the chorus in that song, right? He's saying, "What's my drug of choice? Well, what have you got?"
Yeah, dude, such a good hook.
What have you got? So it's fucking crazy, dude.
To JB's point, he made this point earlier, but like it seems very Southern rock. Like a lot of the themes, it's like Southern rock, but really dark.
Yeah.
And like I think doom metal is like, you could say doom metal is like Southern rock applied to like metal. Like it's like kind of like slowed down, a little more twang in, a little more sad because of the middle part. But I honestly, I think you were honest on there, JB. Like I think that has a lot to do with it.
Slow metal that's based around the blues scale. That's what it is.
There you go. Maybe there's a more literal explanation than my nonsense. But
well, I'll just expand.
You're honest all the same.
This album should be somewhere between 250. Actually, I would put this album probably somewhere between 200 and 300. It's a fucking crying shame that it's not on the list, and fuck you. Like, fuck you if you don't put this album somewhere on the list. And even if you told me, oh, well, I would put it at 400. Okay, that's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm not okay with you saying, no, there should only be 5 grunge albums on this list, and this one just doesn't make the cut.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree with you. This belongs on here for sure. I mean, especially considering, like I said, the placement of Nevermind, which is probably at like, it's probably at 11 or something like that.
Or like 4.
Probably number 1. Bunch of movie teenagers.
It's definitely not higher than 11, I'm assuming, but
I'm going to send you the answer.
No, don't tell us the answer. We have an ongoing bet that we're not going to resolve until later.
Okay, I'll never tell you.
How about you, Justin? You put it on?
I do. So the last two, yeah, I get how they're left off. I think they're more like niche bands, like kind of cult following type of deal. But this one belongs. Like I bet you I could find one album in the bottom 200 that absolutely needs to come off, and this one belongs there, whether it's a grunge album or not. Like I think there's a lot of rock albums, like rock and roll, honestly, is probably overrepresented. Yeah. And I think that you could take a lot of the offshoots of rock from the 60s and 70s that probably overrepresent the list and replace them with this. So it's like, you know what, you did it for 2 or 3 decades and it was great, but you created something that has grown and spawned new stuff. And this album, Dirt by Alice in Chains, is a representation of an offshoot of rock and roll that lives on and deserves to be recognized, and to the tune of more than 5 grunge albums on the list, I think. So I think it absolutely belongs.
Amen.
Yeah, I think you put it really well.
Yeah, I agree. What do you say? You want to move on to Animals?
Let's do it.
All right. So the 4th album that we're going to talk about tonight, one more after this, we got Pink Floyd, Animals. So Wikipedia says Animals is the 10th studio album by English rock band Pink Floyd, released on 21 January 1977 through Harvest and Columbia Records. It was recorded at the band's Britannia Row Studios in London throughout 1976 and was produced by the band. The album continues the long-form compositions that made up their previous works, including Wish You Were Here from 1975. The album received positive reviews from critics and was commercially successful, reaching number 2 in the UK and number 3 in the US. Wow. Animals is both a prog rock album and a concept album focusing on the social political conditions of mid-1970s Britain, and was a change from the style of their earlier work. Tension within the band during production culminated in keyboardist Richard Wright being fired 2 years later. The album's cover shows an inflatable pig floating between 2 chimneys of Battersea Power Station, conceived by the band's bassist and lead songwriter Roger Waters, and was designed by longtime collaborator Storm Thorgerson. The band released no singles from the record, but promoted it through the In the Flesh tour. Waters' agitation with audiences during the tour inspired their next record, The Wall. This album's brilliant, right?
Yeah. So this is a tough one, in my opinion, because there's undoubtedly a lot of Pink Floyd on this list. You know, like Pink Floyd is an iconic band. There's definitely, you know, I'm sure Dark Side of the Moon is top 50. You know, definitely Wish You Were Here's on there. I bet The Wall is top 150 at the very least. Or, you know, very most or whatever, you know what I mean? And, but at the same time, it goes back to the argument that we brought up several times, which is like, do you fucking put people on here for the sake of diversity, or do you just simply put the best albums on here, on this list? Yeah. And that's a hard choice to make, because like, you're going to tell me fucking like, and I'm going to list a couple albums here that I think are really good, but you're going to tell me Harry Styles' Fine Line is better than Pink Floyd Animals? You're going to tell me Arylar by MIA is better than Pink Floyd's Animals?
How about Bad Bunny, bro? You're going to say Bad Bunny is better than Animals?
Is better than Pink Floyd Animals? I could go on and on here. So it goes back to that argument. You decide at some point. Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
I think you stumbled onto a great thing there, and that's the recency bias of the list. So technically, if you look at the release year of all these albums on the list, it's like the average is probably well below like 1980 or 1990 or something. But the albums that you listed were all pretty recent. I think it's because like the way that they created the list, the people they polled, like these are people who are interested in what sells. Like these are recording musicians whose living depends upon people buying records. Yeah. And so like I think there is a bit of recency bias in this that would potentially preclude what, you know, it's really hard to say. It's not necessarily an objective view of how do you even objectively say what the 500 best are? You can't do it. You have to do polls like this. But I think there's some recency bias, and I think that's why you see albums like this get excluded, because like if you make an album like Animals, like it's probably not going to be super successful right now, and that's a tragedy. And I'd buy it, but like I'm not going to say that. I live in Brooklyn. It'd be weird for me to say that a bunch of people think the way I do. I'm supposed to think that no one thinks the way I do, and I'm super unique.
You are a snowflake, Justin. You are a beautiful little Brooklyn snowflake, all on your own.
Thank you so much.
This is hard for me because I agree with you. I think that we are inevitably going to see The Wall, Wish You Were Here, Dark Side of the Moon. I don't know that we're going to see anything more than that, though. Like, I think that that's going to be the representation of Pink Floyd, are those 3 albums.
But I was really curious, like, the ballsiness of the list, if they would be so crazy as to put, like, Saucer Full of Secrets or Piper at the Gates of Dawn on here. Like, I'm thinking not, but at the same time, might be really cool. And it could be a cool left field pick for, like, mid 300s if it was, like, you know, I mean, because really that was one of the big psychedelic records of, like, the late 60s, early 70s. Like, either one of those, you could argue, like, helped spawn a wave of music. So I wouldn't be totally shocked. I'd be a little bit.
Sid Barrett records. Like, Mike, you didn't list a single Sid Barrett record. JB, those are Sid Barrett records. Sid Barrett's kind of like this iconoclast in psych rock, psychedelic rock, and like I think also prog rock. I think Pink Floyd is like this great blend of psychedelic and prog rock, where it's like equal parts psychedelic, but also like really technically complex.
Yeah.
At the same time,
this record is tons of elements of prog rock, more so than any other, in my opinion.
Wish You Were Here. I feel like Wish You Were Here is just as kind of prog rocky as what you get on this album. I mean, maybe you do. I mean, you do have a Cigar on that, and I mean, you have more mainstream elements too. But I feel like, you know,
Shine On You Crazy Diamond.
Yes, Shine On You Crazy Diamond and Welcome to the Machine, right? Like, those are both like really, really like super prog rocky cuts, you know. But
honestly, Welcome to the Machine is a grunge track. Listen to it again. Listen to the guitar solo. Tell me I'm wrong.
When we get to it. Because I genuinely believe that I genuinely believe that The Wall, Wish You Were Here, and Dark Side of the Moon are going to be the Pink Floyd entries. And that's it. I don't think we're getting anything else. I don't think we're getting Sid. I don't think we're getting anything early like Metal, which I really, really love Metal. I think it's a fantastic album. And from that standpoint, I even like Pink Floyd, what they did when they went super mainstream in the 80s. Like, I love A Momentary Lapse of Reason. It doesn't sound anything like early Pink Floyd, but I still fucking love it. It's a great record.
But yeah, to your point, if I was a betting man, which I am, I would say that neither Piper at the Gates of Dawn or Saucer Full of Secrets is on the list. But we should do a bonus episode with both of those. Saucer Full of Secrets and Piper at the Gates of Dawn, same episode.
I like that.
Just for the name, Saucer Full of Secrets, in my opinion, should be like top 10. Name a better named album than A Saucer Full of Secrets from an English rock band. Come on.
Yeah. It's pretty fantastic, right?
I love it.
It's pretty fantastic. Yeah. Every track on this album, I mean, there's only 5 tracks, right? And it is absolutely, it's absolutely a concept album, right? Just like what Wikipedia was talking about, you know, socio political commentary about Britain. Basically, you got
based on Orwell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a riff on Animal Farm, you know. So you got cops or dogs, pigs or politicians or leaders, and then the sheep are the people. And it's just, I don't know, it's brilliant. I love them all. And this album's not that long. It's only 40 minutes, so just fucking dive in. Listen to the whole thing because it's worth it.
The middle 2 tracks, I mean, you definitely, like, that's the thing. You can't listen to this not all together. You know, like it's meant to be. This is, if anything, I mean, if any record ever was meant to be listened to all in a row, it's this. Like, these don't even make sense on their own, you know?
Correct.
But like Dogs and Pigs are the 2 standouts for me. Those songs are both just otherworldly, like just masterpieces of prog rock. I love everything about them. A high point for me is Dogs, with the little dual guitar line, where it'll dun 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 dun, dun, you know, and then it leads into like the major buildup where it's like dun dun dun, you know, and they do like that dual guitar line. It's just like straight up bliss, and I just like turn as loud as my fucking car speaker will go, and I'm just like,
because that's also that it's also that iconic David Gilmour sound too. Right, like those guitar lines that you're referencing there, it's kind of like Brian May, right? As soon as you hear those guitar lines, you're like, oh yeah, that's fucking David Gilmour. It has to be David Gilmour.
Yeah,
and it's just signature. It's beautiful.
Just pure bliss, though. Like it doesn't get any better.
He plays a very clean Stratocaster a lot of the time, and that's what's unique. Is like a lot of people have some version of distortion going on, and he's just piping a clean Stratocaster at your, you know, right in your face.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's just stunningly beautiful, and I love it.
That black Strat, dude.
Yeah.
He's shit.
Honestly, if I could be any one guitar player, like I feel like I'd be David Gilmour. Like if I could just steal one guy's tricks, like just his entire trick bag, just make it my own, it'd be David Gilmour. And the one thing I think he's lacking, I think in these compositions, what they do really well is they section it off so that he's got like the minor part of the composition, and then there's a transition, and then it's major. And like Dark Side of the Moon, you'll see that a lot too, which I would think is it's got to be the highest ranked on the list, is my guess.
Yeah, I'm with
So
you.
like,
top 25, top 50 at the very least.
I hope so. It's a masterpiece concept album, but like the one thing he doesn't do is he doesn't tie those pieces together. Like a lot of the time it's two separate stanzas of the same piece. And like, I never understood that, because I wonder if that was kind of the Waters influence, because he's not the greatest instrumentalist. You know, he's more of the lyricist. Like if he wanted, like, all right, that was that part. Now, like, I'm going to sing again, and then you can play that part. Like maybe it has something to do with that, but like I always wondered why David Gilmour, this incredibly accomplished and capable guitar player who can like create masterpieces in any kind of tonality, is like so broken up on this record.
Have you guys ever seen Live at Pompeii, the video from Pink Floyd? Yeah, where it's basically like half live recording of them playing in Pompeii, and then the other half of it is them recording Dark Side of the Moon. And I think that speaks to what you're talking about, Justin, right? Because in that video, you know, you see Roger Waters was controlling this band, period, point blank. Like he was the primary songwriter, he was the primary lyricist, and he was the guy that was arranging a lot of this stuff. And when you watch the way that Waters was having David Gilmour put all of these solos in there, I think a lot of it was, listen, I need a solo for this segment of time in this song. Now get in there and do something. And if Waters didn't like it, it was, nope, fuck it, do it again. Nope, fuck it, do it again. Nope, fuck it, do it again. And I think that's why you're picking up on that, because I think that's real.
Well, and Waters must have an ear, because, you know, David Gilmour's work on these recordings it speaks for itself. It's incredible. It's as good as it gets. And so maybe Waters has a good ear for that. I guess the thing that has left me wanting is that it's so fragmented.
Yes.
Like it's a great concept album. Each song, each component is great on its own, obviously better for being part of a concept album. But what always has bothered me about this album and some other works of Pink Floyd, because of how much of a fan of David Gilmour I am, is that it's so fragmented. It's like he plays one solo and then there's a verse, which is, you know, that's typical song structure. But at the same time, it's like, this is a guy that's more than capable of an expanded, he's more than capable of expanded solos that range in different themes. I mean, maybe as good as anybody. And he doesn't get those opportunities on these albums, and that bothers me.
Yeah, at the same time, though, maybe it's like, not that I don't want to hear more of David Gilmour, but maybe it's overall for the best, because that's something that and this is not directed at what you said at all, Mike, because I hear this all the time, and I've said it myself a million times. Like, I hear a lot of people second guess like Roger Waters on on these, but like if he really was steering the ship, like, oh, you have a problem with fucking the output of Pink Floyd? Because I feel like it worked out pretty fucking good. But and like that's a shot at myself as much as because I've said the same thing. I've been like, oh, fucking Roger Waters didn't restrict this here and there. Then this would have been but like I think it worked out okay.
Listen,
so
yes, and I'm not.
That was towards me as much more so than it was towards what you said.
Absolutely, I have absolutely no critique of Roger Waters, like what he's doing. My comment was more just in response to what Justin picks up on it, and Justin, like I said, I think that you're spot on. I think that you're right there. But there's no fucking way that I'm gonna sit here and be like, if Roger Waters only would have let that breathe a little bit more, it just would have been fantastic.
And again, see, I have done that, which is why I brought it up. Not because of what you said at all, but because I've said that myself and then realized what I was saying. And then I've heard other people say that too. And I was like, wait a second, you know what? Maybe he really does know what he's doing.
Well, regardless of all this album is brilliant. I love it. It works so well, especially just in the concept as a whole. But then I could listen to individual tracks. Like I could just listen to Dogs. I wouldn't want to. As soon as I heard it, I'd want to listen to the rest of the album. But I'm not a fan. Like this to me is a really, really legitimate snub. And I don't think that the list would have been. I don't think that it would have been less inclusive by adding a fourth Pink Floyd album. We're not talking about the Beatles, where every damn Floyd album is on here. I really think that we're only going to wind up with 3, and this should have been the 4th. There should have been 4.
Definitely should have been the 4th. I'm with you there. And at the beginning of the episode, we said that there were 2 or I said that. You said that King Crimson was like surely the most egregious snub, and I said that there were 2 that were the most egregious. And as much as I think Alice in Chains' Dirt is a snub, and I really do, I think if there's few more egregious snubs than this.
That's a tough battle for me only because I do think that Alice in Chains was really, really unique. And if you told me that I could only have if you told me that I could only have one of these albums on the list, I'm actually going to put King Crimson. Like King Crimson would be my one out of all 5 of these. But if you gave me 2, I would actually put Alice in Chains before I put Animals, just because of the uniqueness of what they did within the context of their genre.
I think I would personally put Animals, but I don't condemn that decision at all.
Yeah, I hear you.
How about you, Justin?
So
same question. If you could only put 2 of these.
So I think because of Pink Floyd's representation that I am so sure is going to be on this list. You've already got good representation of the concept album in this particular genre. You've got good representation of Pink Floyd's brand of rock and roll, which I think is like prog rock light.
Yeah.
Which at times they're more prog rock, at times they're not. But it seems like my guess is the list is going to favor the prog rock light stuff that's been more commercially viable, like Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall, and Wish You Were Here. Like those 3 they're on this list, and if they're not, then the list is stupid.
Yeah.
And it is, of course, the list sucks. But so to me, because of that representation, I think that I would be okay with this being off the list. It's not that I don't want it to be on the list. I think it belongs on the list. I think every Pink Floyd album belongs on the list. But well, that's not true. There's some like
yeah, let's not put the final cut on this list. Fuck the final cut.
Sure about, but like, yeah. Like I'm okay with this one not being on there. Like, and if I had to say, like, of the 4 we've talked about so far, the biggest snub to me would be Dirt.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, should we move on to what I'm sure all agree is the most egregious snub of the entire fucking list?
The king of snubs, perhaps?
If you will, the king of snubs. Yeah. So this is In the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson. In the Court of the Crimson, debut studio album by English rock band King Crimson, 1969 by Island Records. The album is one of the first and most influential of the progressive rock genre, where the band combined the blues influence that rock music was founded upon with elements of jazz, classical, and symphonic music. The album reached number 5 on the UK album chart and number 28 on the US Billboard 200. Certified gold by the RIAA. Reissued several times. I'm skipping through some of this shit. Yeah. That's enough. It's got a bunch of technical numbers stuff that we don't need to read off on this album.
Should we let Justin lead off with this one?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is actually the reason, not to just not do that, but that's the reason. One of the main reasons why I thought Justin would be a good fit for this episode was because of this album. So.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with our long held friendship. It's more so just because I'm the one person JB might know that loves King Crimson.
Yeah, actually, don't like it very much. That's the secret I haven't told you. But, no.
Yeah. All right. I'll start off with a quick confession. So this isn't the only example of this, but it's the most important one, I think. I came by this album by way of a Kanye West sample. So Kanye West sampled 21st Century Schizoid Man on his song Power, which, if you don't know Power, on my Dark Twisted Fantasy or something?
My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Which is a great album. And it's absolutely on the list. If it's not, then that should be a snub that should be talked about. That's a great fucking album.
Amen.
Pretty sure it's on the list.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, it's more likely to be on this list than anything we've talked about. So.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
But anyways, I heard that, and like it came out in 2010, and I started to figure out this whole sample game where it's like, oh, Kanye West didn't write 21st century. That's a sample. I was a senior in high school. I was dumb as hell. Like, what did you want from me? But so I look up this album, and this is right around the time where I'm going. I think senior year of high school, JB. I was going over to your house a lot after school. You had a band going on. I was just getting into playing the guitar and like getting into instrumentals and stuff. And so it struck me at a really good time, like the perfect moment for me to discover progressive rock. And so that's how I came by this album. And every time I listen to it, which it's not an album that comes up a lot on playlists. It's more one that's great to own on vinyl because like all the other concept albums that we've discussed. It's one that's great to own on vinyl because you want to listen to it side A, flip it over side B. That's the way to listen to it. So it doesn't come up on playlists a lot for me, but every time I listen through it, it's just my jaw drops of how much of a masterpiece this is, of start to finish, the musicianship, the compositional quality, the talent that they have among the guys on this record is just absolutely out of this world. And the one track that I came to this album for, 21st Century Schizoid Man, is my least favorite song on the album. And I love that song. I'm just saying the other four are like just so impressive and so much better. And this song is the biggest snub ever. Progressive rock is criminally underrepresented on the list. There's only, want me to tell you, I'll tell you how many, but there's not nearly enough albums on the list. And if there was even only one, this should be the one. It invented the freaking genre as far as I'm concerned. And I'm just heartbroken it's not included.
Do you know how many there are?
I do.
How many? There's one progressive rock record?
One.
Wow.
Well, don't tell us.
We've already fucking heard it.
You have.
It's yes.
It is.
Oh, okay.
Close to the edge.
That's the
We've already
only
fucking
rock record on this entire fucking list? This list sucks.
fuck yeah, dude.
It's a great album, but like I would take this album over any Yes album any day of the week, every single time.
And I'm right there with you, Justin. I loved Close to the Edge. We got it. We ended up all getting it on vinyl.
I mean, obsessed with that record, but this is just another fucking level. This is like Close to the Edge is real high, but Court of the Crimson King is the top. If you ask me, and I feel like we're gonna again, this another circle jerk.
Yeah,
You know,
that's what I was gonna say. Let the circle jerk commence because
Everybody raise your right hand.
to your right.
Can we talk about Ian Mcdonald for just a second?
Oh my god, the guy that played all the woodwind instruments and stuff.
Dude, what the fuck, dude? You know what you never get on a rock album? How about a fucking bass clarinet? What the fuck, dude?
Bass clarinet on the rock stuff.
There's just not a ton of bass clarinet in rock, you know, but it's not just that. Literally, when you pull up his credits, that motherfucker, Ian McDonald played saxophone, flute, clarinet, bass clarinet, harpsichord, piano, organ, vibraphone, and the mellotron.
Foreigner, by the way. What a weird segue to Foreigner. Like, I don't know how he got there.
For sure.
Crimson, but he did.
Where's he from? I apologize.
King Crimson.
Well played, Justin. Well played, JB. Well played. I love it. So I want to to me, there's this weird thing that Robert Fripp gets a ton of accolades, right? And I'm not taking anything away from Robert Fripp, but when I think about what's most impressive to me, Michael Giles on drums was unbelievable. Like, this is an album that the drums play melody on different songs on this album. And that's a weird thing to say. And JB, you might be like, Mike, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but fuck off. Like, the drums play melody on some of the tracks on this record.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I just said tread carefully about the Robert Fripp thing, just because I think Robert Fripp is incredible, but I don't disagree with what you said about the drummer at all.
Well, so what playing on this record most stands out to you from Fripp on this particular album? Like, what am I missing?
Moonchild, for sure. The whole breakdown on Moonchild. That if you're asking for the highlight, that's what that is. But I mean, it's good throughout. But yeah, if you're asking for the highlight, it's going to be the whole. It's like Moonchild has like this long breakdown on it that almost sounds like Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah,
and it's just like jazzy rock guitar lines, just almost ad nauseum, but in a good way. And it's just again and again, and
he does a lot of interplay with Giles on the drums in that breakdown that you're talking about, right?
Yep. And it's just this beautiful playing, incredible tone. Just the notes he chooses is just really great. So
I made those notes. I made those notes on Moonchild too, and I was not trying to shit on Robert Fripp at all.
And I didn't think you would.
Yeah, that's and I made all those notes in Moonchild. I get exactly what you're talking about. I wrote the word gentle, right? Gentle is the word that I wrote that came to mind in all of that interplay in the middle of Moonchild.
Yeah.
But man, I just couldn't stop listening to the drums, in all honesty. And then when all of that crazy instrumentation came in, and it's not just in one song, that classical orchestral arrangement, it's everywhere on this record. And it's just wild to think about a rock album that you get this type of variety of instrumentation and fluidity between all of the instrumentation. It's crazy.
You were right to call out Ian McDonald like as a noteworthy contributor, because not only obviously he was, but like the flute solos that you can hear.
The flute is the most standout to me.
I have been JB taught me how to play guitar, but like the way I practice guitar is I hear a song I like and I try to just play the guitar solo from that, or like the vocal melody, whatever. I have been just trying to play the flute solos from this album on my guitars for the last, the few hours before this thing. Because I saved this one for last because I've already heard it 100 times. But yeah, it's the flute solos. That's like the one new thing. Like every time you listen to an album, you know, if you're lucky, you'll pick up that one thing you didn't really tune into. And for me, this time,
Like
shockingly,
watching
embarrassingly, it was the flute solos. I was like, Jesus Christ, this fucking guy with the fucking.
Yeah. I know,
dude. I wrote down a lot of those same sentiments too. Like I paid special attention to the flute solo so much that like when I was listening to the second song, I Talked to the Wind, I was listening to the flute and I was like, who the fuck played that flute? And that's when I found out it was like Ian McDonald. And just like Mike was talking about, I looked it up and I was like, just the thickness of his fucking of his contribution, you know, it was just out of this world.
On that same track, JB, I Talked to the Wind, the fucking clarinets on that track are astounding. Like really,
McDonald, right?
Yes, he played all of those. Basically, if you hear a woodwind instrument in the Court of the Crimson King, it's Ian McDonald, and just, guys, it's brilliant. I mean, it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. That's that. If anything needs that term, it's this.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. For me, my favorite track on this record is the title track, In the Court of the Crimson King.
It's so, dude, it just feels so good. In the Court of the Crimson King. Yeah.
The one thing that kills me on this record is that Epitaph and Moonchild requires a turn. Like you got to turn your record A to B, 1 to 2. Like that kills me because that's my favorite. They didn't write it as like if you have gapless playback, it's not going to sound like a super seamless transition, but it's pretty close. And it's like a side A to side B transition that I just wish wasn't there. And I get that they had to do it because of the limitations of vinyl production at the time, but damn, it's like I wish that this would have been like a 5-track side A and then like a bonus side B or something, because like that gap between A and B I did not love.
Yeah, and it is pretty seamless when you listen to it digitally, you know, because this was one of those records that if you just put it on, you know, obvious exit from 21st Century Schizoid Man, but really I Talk to the Wind all the way through to the rest of the album. If you're listening to it digitally, it flows really, really beautifully. I mean, you can tell right where the song breaks are, but if you're not paying attention, you could easily get lost in any one of these and then, you know, have to look up and be like, wait, which track is this again? And kind of find your place.
Yeah. So which song had the dope flute solo? Oh, like all of them? Shit.
Do you mean every single song had a flute solo? Yeah.
Yeah, dude, if Jethro Tull is on this list and this album isn't, I'm gonna do more than write letters.
I'm pretty sure Jethro Tull is on the list. You should go further than write a letter. You should write an email.
I am going to electronically mail these motherfuckers.
You should.
Okay,
Mike, do you own this on vinyl?
Not yet, but that's gonna get fucking remedied real fast.
Justin introduced me to this record, and he had it on vinyl, and I bought it shortly thereafter, so I do have it.
Yeah.
So really, as always, all credit, all praise be to Kanye West.
Kanye West, yeah, sure, yeah.
I do want to know though. Obviously, we all agree that this is a fucking massive snub. It needs to be on this list. Where on this list do you put it?
I think this is a top 100 album.
Top 50?
That's a tough one. That's tough to say.
I'm not against it, but I'm not going to argue for it. But I'm going to argue for top 100.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would be comfortable. Same with JB. Like, I'd be comfortable talking to whoever voted on this list that they were wrong to not include it in the top 100, because like there's probably dozens of rock and roll prog. Well, there's only one prog rock record, but like, and there's dozens of records that came after this one that just would have had no right to exist if these barriers hadn't been broken down. Of like, hey, did you know that you can play a flute on a rock and roll record and it's fucking cool?
And it's cool. Yeah.
Probably including Close to the Edge, because Close to the Edge was 70s, right, Mike?
Yeah. I want to say 72, 73. So yeah, there was
existed in the same sense that it did without this.
Yeah. There's no way that Close to the Edge gets made without this record.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would say that a lot of progressive rock can be pretty gratuitous in one way or the other. Like it's like you've got the this iconoclastic guitar player or keyboard player. It's like always focused on like one guy, or it's like all instrumentals.
Mm-hmm.
This album is unlike any other progressive rock album, in my opinion. Like the perfect balance of incredible composition, great lyrical content, and like restraint. Like you've got some of the best instrumentalists of their time playing on a record, and they were just kind of serving the song. Like they made this concept album and they served that purpose, that story. And I don't know if it's me, like it's a top 50, but like, I feel like I could sell it as a top 100 maybe to the people that had to pick this list.
Yeah.
And to that point that you just made about the serving the song, like, and not that he was doing this intentionally necessarily, but I think the vocalist fit perfectly because I can't remember the guy's name, but whoever was singing,
Greg Lake.
Yeah, he was singing. His vocals were great. Don't get me wrong; they were fantastic. He was singing right on the note. He sang all the pitches perfectly, but it was not so like standout virtuosic as to distract from like the meat of what was really going on, which is the music. And I think that was a good decision. Whether it was intentional or not, it worked out in the favor of the record. Like, which is that you have the voice that's going to just get across the point, but it's not going to distract. It's not so virtuosic as to make you be like, well, damn, what a vocalist,
Yeah. I do. For me, I'm okay with it. I would be okay with it as high as 50. I would be okay with it as low as 150, only because if it fell somewhere between 100 and 150, I think you could justify that purely based on accessibility. There's going to be some people that if they listen to this record, they don't fucking get it, right? And they're going to be like, this is a rock album, and I don't want flutes on my rock album, or I don't want a fucking bass clarinet on my rock album. And I can appreciate that, and I can get it. And so from that standpoint, I would be okay with it if it ended up falling between 100 and 150. But the idea that this album is nowhere on the list is just it's so fucking absurd. I mean, crazily absurd.
We don't people that feel that way.
No.
I feel like if you just told everybody it inspired Kanye West, it'd be on the list. Seriously.
Check it out. Kanye West sampled this. They're like, put it on the list. Put it at number 500.
Honestly, if you're looking for a Spotify playlist to listen to, like the songs that are sampled by Kanye West is a great playlist. Like they make a playlist of all those songs, so good, and you'll discover so much good music, which is shocking. But like, and this will be one of them. This you'll get turned on to this album if you hadn't heard it before. You would stumble into this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yeezy. Thank you, Yeezy.
An episode. Some really true, interesting albums to talk about, potentially snubs, several of which are certainly snubs. So,
yeah.
What the fuck were you thinking, Rolling Stone, when you made this list to leave some of these albums off? Maybe all of these.
Yeah. I mean, definitely 2 or 3 of them. Definitely fucking 2 or 3 of them. I think you could make incredibly solid arguments for. So,
yep.
They were thinking about the niche podcast market that would come from their terrible list.
They were just trying to make sure that
that's what they're thinking about.
They were just trying to make sure that me and Mike had a job.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted to make sure that we had shit to do on Friday night.
Exactly. Yeah, I appreciate that, Rolling Stone.
Thank you, Rolling Stone.
Should we preview next week, Mike?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So speaking of Friday nights, next week we're going to be back to the regular scheduled programming, and we're going to be we're hitting another big milestone, right? We're gonna end up finishing up the first 100 albums on this list. We'll be 20% of the way through. We're gonna drink some horrifically shitty champagne that our production assistant Justin has said that he's gonna bring over for us. I can't wait to see what that looks like. But next week we're going to start off at number 405, and this is an album. It's a compilation album from various artists entitled Nuggets: Original Artifacts from the First Psychedelic Era from 1972. And JB, before you go on to number 404, we're just going to do the original release of that, correct? Because I don't know if you've looked at this yet, but apparently they've done there's one fucking version of this Nuggets album that's literally 8 hours long. And
yeah, we'll do that one.
I'm fucking out. Like, I'm not doing 8 hours of the original Artifacts. And
No.
I'm into psychedelia. Like, I get it, but you can fuck off. I'm going to do the first 27 tracks because that was the original release of this. I'm not doing the 4 CD box set that they released in 1998. Fuck off.
Well, to our listeners, I'm going to take detailed notes on all 8 hours of that. And, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, Mike, I'm in agreement. We're going to do the original, the OG version on that.
Yeah.
The short version. So 404 is Anita Baker, Rapture from 1986.
Number 403, we're going to represent the 5 boroughs with Ghostface Killa's Supreme Clientele from 2000. Hootie hoo.
Fun fact about that one: the only reason we were going to name our dog Nutmeg instead of Olive is because of Nutmeg on that album. Yeah, that would have been her theme song. And dude, it was so close, but she just looked like an olive, so we had to go.
Anyway, I love that.
That was the album you were talking about earlier when you were talking about there was one that you wanted to talk about. Yeah,
that was I love Ghostface. Yeah,
I do too.
402 is Fela Kuti and Africa 70. Expensive Shit is the name of the album.
I can't wait for that, by the way. I really can't fucking wait for that. And the last thing that we're going to be talking about next week, number 401, taking us through the first 100 from 1977, the first release from Blondie, their self-titled album. So Blondie by Blondie.
Yeah. So thanks again, Justin, for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And this is your second appearance and certainly not your last. So we'll be seeing you again.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. Absolutely not. And hopefully you do make it out to the Midwest this summer, because it would be a lot of fun to do this instead of in 3 different locations, just in one location.
All 3 in one. Triple.
Big news in Brooklyn town. We are going to buy a car so we can drive there. Or hell, when we're all vaccinated after May, we can fly there.
Damn.
We're going to be there in the summertime. You can count on that. So,
well, whenever you're here, we're going to make it work. We're going to do an episode with you. So,
absolutely. Thank you.
It's such a good time. I love what you guys do here. Just, spreading music. I'm sure people that watch this, there's an album they haven't heard that they can, look at through a new lens, which is the same thing that happens to me when you ask me to be a part of it. And I love it. And thanks for asking me to do this.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
We appreciate you. We'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.
This list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. This list sucks. It sucks.
Bye-bye. Awesome.